Greetings, Flosstube. Today is Sunday, August 28th, 2016. It's 1:52 p.m. I just thought I'd drop by and show you one of my finished projects. Yay! My 5th finish of the year. And show you a couple of my works in progress. Again, thank you to Silly Eels for suggesting the Handbrake video conversion software. It made the last video I posted go much faster. I think it took 2.5 hours to upload, and it probably would have taken 7 or 8 if I'd left it as a AVI file. And I told my husband about it, and he was like, "You mean you were uploading as AVI files? No wonder it took you all day." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. It's just whatever file format the webcam records." But I converted that video over to an MP4, and it went by much faster. Because I'm doing this early in the afternoon, hopefully I can get it to post before midnight and actually be posted on the same day that I film it. That'll be a first in any of my videos I've done, so we'll see how it goes. I am going to try to keep this into about a 45-minute video because I do have to run out and run some errands before my yoga class. But I just wanted to drop by. I mentioned a finished object, and I'm going to stand up here so you can see it. This is the wedding cross stitch that I did for my friends Dan and Diane. Well, it'd help if I held it right side up, of course, but here it is. I am so pleased with how it turned out. And the bottom, I wrote D+D Mary, and the whole D+D Mary thing is because when they were planning their wedding, they had a lot of groomsmen and bridesmaids and various wedding guests who were out of town who they wanted to be able to be included in the planning stages of the wedding. So they had a website that they set up, and they called it D+D Mary. So I wrote that on there on their wedding date of July 16th. A little late, a little past the time I wanted to have it done, but still, it was fun to do. I actually stitched on it on their wedding day, which gives it a little bit more meaning to me even than it would have had. So that one, I think it turned out really sweet. And I like it a lot better than the project I was going to do, which was a black work. It was kind of frou-frou-y, and Diane and Dan don't go in for frou-frou-y, overly fancy stuff anyway. That's not their personalities. So I just think that simple, sweet little cross stitch was perfect for them. So I'm going to take it Tuesday. I'm going to pick up my sister's birthday present and drop that off. I did have an epiphany a couple weeks ago. Why am I going to mail it to them? They're coming up for homecoming on October 1st. So I'll be able to share that with them in person. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be exciting. Now, last Sunday, I had the day all to myself because Bill had to go into work. He actually did have a little bit of downtime, and we had the morning together, and then he had to go into work. So I made myself a promise: if I walked at least 1.5 miles, I would spend the rest of the day doing cross stitch. And so I went to lunch at Subway and went out for a walk in Amherst and ended up taking a 2.3-mile walk. Got the steps in I wanted to get in for the day, so I rewarded myself by spending the rest of the day stitching. And the majority of the time I spent was on Nutty Parade, about maybe a little over 3 hours. And I don't know if you remember from the last time I showed you this, but this guy over here, I have to remember it's the mirror opposite. When I'm pointing to the fabric, I'm pointing in the opposite direction here. This guy only had his legs and feet last time I showed you any progress I had made on it. And now he's got most of his body and face, and I'm stitching the hat. He is going to have a big poofy hairdo and beard like Yellow Hat Dude over here has, similar to this one. But I do the whisper thread stitching last because it's a little frustrating. And I mean, I've figured out a technique to stitching the whisper threads, but I always use the whisper thread last. So I spent about 3 hours working on him, and I'm really pleased with how this one's coming along. And then I know I had briefly mentioned on the Stitch Mania Facebook page that I had been working on an unintentionally intentional whip. And I know that makes no sense, but in my mind it does. I call it an unintentionally intentional whip because it's a project that I've been meaning to do. But it's unintentional because I didn't mean to start it in August when I did. I didn't know when I was going to be starting it, honestly, and I thought that I was going to have it done before now. But basically, I'm stitching this one for our minister who had knee replacement surgery on August 15th, which is where the unintentional part of it comes in because I didn't know that she was going to be having her surgery in August. So when I started it, it was an unintentional start. It wasn't anything I had planned. But it's a fully intentional piece because she's a huge fan of the Seven Dwarfs, and not the Snow White story so much per se. She just loves the characters of the Seven Dwarfs. So I bought the Clouds Factory Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs pattern. I'm actually going to leave Snow White, the Evil Queen, and the Prince off of it and just stitch the dwarfs. And this is how much I've gotten done of it. I've got Doc there with the glasses and Bashful in the orange, and the Grumpy is the next one I'm working on. So this I hope to have done in the next couple of weeks to get framed for her to give to her as a welcome back gift when she gets back to church on a full-time basis. I did go today and she was there. She's walking on one crutch and she doesn't need the crutch all the time. So she's able to move under her own power a bit, but you can tell she's still in a lot of pain. And she's going to be. She came up to me and gave me a big hug and we were talking and she said, well, the thing is you start feeling better, but then you stop taking the medication and you feel 10 times worse than the worst you felt before. And I was like, yeah, but you need to take your meds the way the doctors prescribed them for, how long they told you to be on them because, they are going to make you think you're feeling better. And then, of course, when they wear off. And she's someone who never takes a lot of pain medication anyway, like Advil or Tylenol or whatever, because she's told me before, well, it just upsets my stomach and doesn't help my pain, so I don't take it. So she's not used to taking a lot of pain meds. So I think she thought she could come off of them earlier than she could. And no, she had her knee joint taken out and replaced with a fake one, so yeah, it's going to take a while. And I thought she had said she wanted to be back in time for communion next Sunday. And I don't know how many listeners I have out there who are even very religious, but in the Protestant faith, we do communion the first Sunday of every month. And I was thinking, honey, that's going to be 3 weeks post-surgery. There's no way you're going to be back for communion. But the thing is in our church, in the Congregational church, the deacons and the minister can switch the communion date for whatever reason. So we're actually going to do it the third Sunday in September. So I hope to have this finished and framed for her by then and give it to her as a gift, a welcome back gift. Now, I do have another completely unplanned whip that I haven't worked on enough to show you, but it's going to be a cross stitch, a little emergency, so to speak, cross stitch that I'm making for my niece. We found out this past week sucked eggs for reasons that I don't even have a chance to go into, really, and you don't want to hear me complain about how bad last week was. But let's just say that it was a really crappy week, and the icing on the cake was finding out my niece is going to have to go into the hospital on September 6th. You've heard me mention that she has cystic fibrosis, and that she's been doing very well, all things considered. But she's had this infection for, better part of a year now that she can't get rid of. So they're putting her in the hospital to do what they call a cystic fibrosis tune-up, which it's a common thing for a cystic fibrosis patient to have to go through these routine tune-ups every now and then. They're going to have to put a PICC line in so that they can give her more direct antibiotics than they could by her just using a nebulizer antibiotic or taking a pill. And they're going to have to do a bronchoscopy so that they can see exactly what's going on, what kind of germ, or is there, congestion buildup in her lungs that they can clean out so that they can help her get back to as peak of performance as she can be at with her tests, with her pulmonary function tests and things. Now, the thing is with her pulmonary function test, she's at 91% right now, which is still, for a cystic fibrosis patient who's 11 years old, that's still very good. But of course, they want to keep her pulmonary function as close to 100% for as long as they can. I'd personally be more freaked out by it if she were like at 75 or 80. She has had diminished lung capacity down to like 80% before, which really did freak me out because that's not good. But, you know, if her lung function was down to that level, I might be a little more freaked out than I am. But she's never, the thing that's kind of gotten to me is that she's never been hospitalized for her cystic fibrosis before. And it was bound to happen at some point. You know, she's got a very rare genetic mutation that caused her cystic fibrosis. Most cystic fibrosis patients carry like 75% of all the cystic fibrosis patients in the world have a similar genetic defect that caused it. But she only has one that's shared with like 5 or 6 other people in the world. So I've always wondered whether or not that's a good thing. I mean, could the rarity of it mean that it's a milder version, or does it mean it's more severe because they're at the, I mean, we just don't know. There's no way even the geneticist would know that. So she's going to have to go into the hospital, and somehow I must be a bad auntie because I didn't know she loves unicorns until I saw my sister discussing it on Facebook about they want to decorate her hospital room with unicorns and stuff. So, of course, what did I do? I went online, tried to find a free cross-stitch pattern of a unicorn. Well, I found, and she especially loves the rainbow pooping unicorn emoji. I mean, if you knew my niece, she is her mother's daughter and her auntie's niece, because that's the kind of thing that would have appealed to me as a kid, too. So I found I'm on the Daily Cross Stitch website, I found a rainbow pooping unicorn. So she's the only one on earth I would cross stitch a rainbow pooping unicorn for, but I'm going to do it. I'm doing it on 14 count plastic canvas, and then I've got a piece of felt that kind of coordinates with it that I'm going to use some soluble, what do you call it, like the stuff that quilters use, the fusible webbing, that's it. Now, I've got fusible webbing from when I've made ornaments before and fused felt to the back of the ornament. So I'm going to fuse some felt to the back of that and send it to her in a card just for a little something different. But yeah, I just got started on that, so I don't really have that much to show you. But that is my other work in progress. I did actually start, I don't think I have it sitting here with me. When I finished Mary A, I started 99 by ink circles because the man I'm making this for, I hope to be able to give it to him next March, so I wanted to start it as soon as I could since it's such a big project. And so far, I haven't gotten a whole lot done. This is the Pale Moon beer, and then this is a Heineken, which, I swear, I always end up trailing strings. I mean, Bill says he can always tell when I've been cross-stitching if he's not here, because he'll come in and there's little strings all over, or I'll get up and I'll have a string hanging off of me. I think that's just part of it. But yeah, so that's the Pale Moon, and that's a Heineken. And this is going to be, just stitching these 2 bottles so far has been a lot of fun. So I'm going to enjoy being able to see all the 99 bottles of beer come to life as I stitch. Now, I have to say, this is my first time using a Q-snap, and I don't know what possessed me to try a Q-snap, except for the fact that I guess some of my hoops have age on them, and they're just hard to get the right tension. You know, like when you try to tighten them up, they don't hold the tension that long. But this Q-snap, this piece of fabric it's like a drum head. It's nice and tight, and of course, I know you just manipulate the sidebars a little bit if you need to tighten it up. And so I'm really pleased with how well the tension's holding. I don't leave my Q-snaps on like I don't leave my hoops on my other projects. So once I'm done stitching on this for the day, I'll take it off, and I do have these little wispy fabric pieces just to keep it from, totally marking up the piece. But a hoop marks up the piece too, so you just have to make sure you iron it and all that when you're finished stitching it. But the fun part of this pattern is that the designer, she put a list of all the different beers in the kit, or in with the pattern, and she did them all by in alphabetical order. But the way it is that the rows are numbered 1 through 9, and then the bottles are A through K from left to right, so that you can look on the list and see what bottles. And I just couldn't deal with the alphabetical list. So I actually went through and I wrote out the list by row so that I could tell, so that it was easier to, row 1, A, B, C, D, F, G, all the way through. And the next one's going to be Kingfisher Premium Lager, which I'll probably get that bottle stitched tonight. But yeah, I'm not OCD or anything like that. I just couldn't find which bottles I was stitching. So I wrote out the list in row order. And it's really kind of, it's different. It's something fun. I've never thought I'd be stitching beer bottles, but this is for a friend of mine who travels a lot with his work. He and his wife own a brick and mortar stationery / fountain pen store in Wisconsin, Anderson Pens, and they do have an online presence as well. But they travel a lot. There's at least, I think there's 14 or 15 pen shows a year in the United States, and I think they travel to like 11 or 12 of them, possibly 13. I know there's a couple they don't get to just because of the distance, but they drive to Washington, D.C. They drove to San Francisco for this weekend. They go to L.A. They go to Dallas. And Bill and I meet up with them every year at the Long Island Pen Show. And we used to take them some craft beer, but the local brewery where we would get the beer, they don't really exist anymore. They got bought out by a bar, and they still have a few of the beers, but not like they used to. So I think instead of taking him beer next year, I'm going to take him the beer cross stitch. But this is just a fun one so far. I like how pixelated the bottles are. You can tell what they are, but of course, to actually have 99 beer bottles in a somewhat reasonable sized cross stitch, you have to keep them small. There is a bottle of Moose Drool that appears in this cross stitch, and I always laugh when I hear about Moose Drool beer because my father used to go to Missoula, Montana on business trips sometimes, and he would tell us about he saw a bottle of Moose Drool and it had like chunks in it and all this, and it's like, oh, that's just revolting. I don't know that Dad ever tried a Moose Drool. I'm pretty sure I would have heard stories about it if he had. So I don't think he's ever tried Moose Drool beer, but I have heard of that one. In the cross stitch, she puts a lot of, commonly heard of beers in there, like Heineken and, Corona and stuff like that. But then she puts a lot of, specialty beers in there too. So this one will be fun. So yeah, that's just about it for my stitchy stuff. Like I said, last week was pretty crappy. The real crap was finding out that my niece is going to have to go in the hospital, but the other real crap that really got to me was just work. There was, I guess it was a week from this past Thursday, there was a workplace violence episode in the call center that's associated with our office. And there's been a huge security crackdown, and I understand that each person has a responsibility to be careful when they go in the building, because we have badges, we have swipe badges that you have to use to go in and out, or just in. But on some level, I kind of felt like I would have much rather heard from management, okay, this is what happened, here's what we're doing to ensure your safety, and here's a few things you can do to make sure that you're safe too. Make sure you're not letting anyone in you don't know or who doesn't have a badge. That kind of thing. But it was all just like, well, you're going to do this, 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 and this. And it just really left me feeling frustrated and kind of perturbed for the rest of the week, because I feel like maybe in a way they're trying to turn the security around on us so that if something did happen in our office, they could be absolved of responsibility, because they could say, well, we told you what to do, which, whatever. And I have worried about an episode taking place in our office, but it's not for people who've been fired and come back like it was with the call center. I worry about some of the people I work with. But so there was that. There was finding out my niece was going to have to go into the hospital. There was some just stress with, trying to do the work with two people because I'm covering for someone while she's out on medical leave with her husband, which I totally get, and I totally appreciate the fact that she needs to be with him. But I only have one brain and two hands, and I don't have coworkers who have the ability to give me any help with my workload because they've got their own workloads to handle. So yeah, stitching was really therapeutic for me this past week. And it is in general anyway. I mean, I don't have to have a crappy week to just truly appreciate the ability to sit down and just stitch for a few quiet hours. It was the last week of football camp, so this time next week, we will have had our first game against University of Florida. So eventually, Bill and I will be settling into more of a routine. After next weekend, we have 4 straight home games. Now, of course, 2 of those are at Gillette and Foxborough, which is not a home venue from here, but technically it is. So we'll see. So things will start to get into much more of a normal routine, so that's good. We did get our air conditioning fixed. I know a couple of people in the last video said, hope you get that fixed. We did. I came in last Tuesday, and it was literally like an igloo in here, so I felt so good. I was just like, normally that would just be so cold to me, but right now it feels good. So we got our air conditioning fixed, and so everything's good. Everything's pretty routine. Bill's doing fine. He did have this weekend off. And we did have a really good weekend, having just some time to rest and recuperate from all of the craziness of the past 3 weeks. But it's hard to believe camp's over already. So, it's just that kind of stuff going on. But I just really wanted to share with you my finished objects. It's really pretty, and I'm going to iron it tomorrow and take it on Tuesday. So I'm looking forward to being able to give it to Dan and Diane, and if the next month goes by as fast as the last 3 weeks have, they'll be here before you know it. And I'm just going to continue to truck away on my cross stitch and just, I'll be back soon, hopefully with another finish. I hope to get the unicorn and the 7 dwarfs done next. Those are my next focus pieces for finishing. Because my niece goes into the hospital on the 6th. She could be there anywhere between 10 and 14 days. It all just depends on what they find. She might not have to be there that long, but she might have to be, so it's really up in the air. So I'm going to try to get that at least en route to her by the 10th. But it won't be, once I finish stitching it on the canvas, I'll just, cut it out with my X-Acto knife, and I'll back it with the fusible webbing and the felt. So hopefully in the next video I'll have that as a finished object to show you. Next week, with Bill being in Florida and the game's not till 7:30, I will have quite a bit of time to stitch both Saturday and Sunday. Because he's already told me they don't get back till like 3 o'clock in the morning. So he told me he's just going to sleep at the office because he'd have to be up at 5 or 6 anyway to, get to work. So they did just get some new furniture in the locker room that he says is very, very comfortable. So he's going to go sleep on the sofa in the locker room, which makes me feel better because by the time he'd get home, get in bed, he'd have to be back up to go to work, and that's just pointless. So I will have a lot of time to stitch next weekend. Handbell Choir and Chancel Choir is going to start up here in another week or 2. So Wednesday nights will not be my stitchy nights as far as having several hours to get things done, but that's okay. If I can stitch here and there a little bit every night. I've actually started a new journal too where I'm writing, well, with the exception of the past couple of days, I'm writing like every 2 or 3 days, so I am doing better about my journaling as far as not just taking weeks to get things written. So it's been pretty productive, and I'm just going to keep this short. I'm going to go convert this video to an MP4. And until next time, I wish you all happy stitching and a happy life, and I'll see you soon.